Hey team, Brian here from Madness and Motive. Today, I wanted to share a video I came across. It's by this guy, Darren F Magee, and he talks about narcissism, but more specifically, the aging narcissist and the changes a narcissist can go through later in life. And as I listened to his video, the parallels between what he was saying and what I have learned from the multiple Markel/Adelson cases were remarkable. Now, I want to be clear, I'm not making like a psychological or personality assessment of any of the Adelsons. I just wanted to share this as a person that came across the video, and I do know, or I'm familiar with, a lot of the evidence from the cases, and I wanted to just share those parallels. Now, this can get a little bit like astrology, where you read a line from a horoscope and you can always find something in your life that happened, and it doesn't necessarily mean that astrology is accurate. So I want to put that disclaimer out there right away. It doesn't mean that this proves that any of the Adelsons are narcissists, but I did want to show you some of the parallels. So let's jump into this video. And let's listen to the first bit. He's basically going to lay the foundation for what narcissism is, and he brings up a couple of things that I think are really relevant.
Just to remind you, narcissism is often characterized by a long-term, pervasive sense of entitlement. There's being self-absorbed and disagreeable. They can be highly sensitive, highly resistant to criticism, and there is a lack of empathy for others. They can also be quite manipulative, like to be in control and like to dominate.
Okay, so there's a lot there, but the two things that jumped out most to me was, number one, the lack of empathy, which you certainly need if you're going to plot a murder and then have that murder take place and then go about your normal life. Number two, the desire to be in control and dominate. When I heard that, I thought back to Donna's emails, and it does come across that way, based on everything that she said and how she's trying to pretty much take control of the situation and hand out orders for everybody. So let's listen to the next bit. The next bit is on vanity, which is always an interesting element of narcissism. So this is at 210.
And even in middle age, many narcissistic people can be quite touchy about their age. Some may even try to reverse the aging process. They may spend lots of money on anti-aging products, dye their hair, dress to try to look younger. Some may look for younger partners or have affairs with younger people.
Okay, so a couple of call-outs there. The attempt to reverse aging definitely makes me think of Donna's surgery. Actually, when I saw the mugshot from last night, the nose really kind of called out the work she probably has had done to me. Now, I don't want to knock her too much about this because we all hate getting older and looking worse. And just because you get surgery doesn't mean you're a narcissistic murderer. Again, that's not what I'm saying at all. Just interesting parallels. And I think it's important that we take in the full picture. So it's not all the different line items. Like, just because she wanted to reverse aging, look better, and got surgery, it doesn't prove, she's narcissistic. But I think when we take in all of the information I'm going to share today, you can see that, in my opinion, she does have narcissistic tendencies. The other point that he made was the infidelity and dating a much younger person. And I think back to June Umchinda's testimony. That's one of Charlie's ex-girlfriends, and I'm shifting to Charlie here. She expressed that she did feel like he was cheating on her, and he, in fact, was, I believe. But what I'm certain of is that he did date a 24-year-old when he was well into his 30s, maybe late 30s, early 40s. Can't remember exactly, but she was much, much younger. That's who he had his child with. A couple of tendencies under the vanity category there. The next thing I want to do show you is the difficulties with grown-up children. So let's get to 333.
Now, if there are difficulties between them and their grown-up children, that adult child maybe has a partner and they are united as a couple, have good, strong boundaries in place. The narcissist may try to bypass them and communicate directly with their grandchildren. Maybe even at a very young age, they buy their grandchildren mobile phones so that they are contactable. They might buy them gifts, try to buy their love with things that perhaps the parents don't approve of. When the parents don't approve, they tend to look like the villain, which can be part of the narcissist's plan.
Okay, so I'll pause it there. Two things I wanted to call out was the difficulties with the grown-up children, and we know there's conflict with Robert Adelson. He's kind of like the estranged brother, the black sheep, people call him. So that's a tendency. The other tendency I wanted to show is the focus on the grandchildren. So a lot of the stuff he said, I didn't really find a parallel with, but just the focus on the grandchildren and the difficulty with their own grown-up children I thought was really interesting. Let's continue on this theme. We're going to go to 410.
Now, if their children's marriages break up, if they had a part in that breakup due to their constant interference, they may completely vilify the ex-partner, even try to alienate their grandchildren against that parent.
Okay, so obviously parallels here. So number one, if they had any involvement in their children's marital breakup, it is possible Donna had something to do with the divorce of Dan and Wendy. I don't know much about that, so I can't comment on it. But what I did find interesting was the tendency to vilify the ex and alienate the grandchildren against one of the parents. So we definitely see this with Donna. She has a lot of hatred, according to the prosecution, toward Dan Markel, and there was certainly attempts to alienate the grandchildren with her, bad mouthing and things like that. He does go into a caveat or an exception here, and I do want to play it because I'm trying to be as fair and honest as possible.
That being said, there have been some cases where following a breakup, they actually side with the ex-partner against their own child. They listen to them, they support them, and they advise them.
Okay, so an important caveat there, just to keep our feet on the ground here and not just kind of vilify a person. Enough of that is already happening to her, especially recently. Let's move on to the responsibility category. This one was interesting to me as well. 641.
Those people from years ago. Narcissistic people generally don't accept any responsibility for their behavior and hate being exposed for their actions. They will always see themselves as the victim, no matter how they have hurt or exploited others.
So really powerful stuff, especially as we think back to Charlie's trial. I mean, just think of Charlie's defense. The whole defense is, I'm the victim. Now, of course, he kind of had to do that to explain everything, but just in dealing myself with narcissists, this is one behavior that drives me crazy. Regardless of what they've done to other people, they always see themselves as the victim. I've experienced that firsthand. And I just think that, this whole lack of empathy plus seeing themselves as the victims was kind of a bit of the seasoning in the recipe that created this murder plot. Allegedly. Charlie got busted for it, but Donna has not been sentenced. So want to be careful there. Now let's talk about the aging narcissists and how they begin to self-destruct as they get later on their timeline, because they've got a wake of bad decisions behind them, and later in life it all starts to catch up. So let's listen to what he says about that. That's at 9:16.
But what we can see in narcissistic people who are in old age is a lifetime worth of destructive antagonistic behavior, which ultimately can become self-destructive. Their behavior over the years has pushed so many people away that they feel isolated, lonely. And sometimes there might be still a lot of arrogance, but a lot less confidence. As they become more frail, experience a loss of autonomy, they maybe have to rely on others for support, but in many cases their behavior has alienated them. Sometimes there's little, if anyone, to reach out to.
I just want to pause it there quickly. He's got a lot more really interesting stuff to say. But one thing that that struck me when I listened to June's testimony. She talked about how Charlie lost all his friends. Now, of course, it would be normal to lose people when you're accused of plotting a murder and you're going through a trial, but I think this was probably happening in his life anyways, and he might have been destined for it, especially the older he got. I thought this was really interesting to hear this expert talk about how they begin to lose people as time goes by. Let's listen to some additional things he says.
Sometimes we may see what's known as a narcissistic collapse. They maybe get to the point when they realize that they are nothing, they have nothing. There's no one left, not even just for company. They may have a ton of money, but nothing of any value to those that they've hurt.
So that was really interesting to me as well. This concept of a narcissistic collapse as you are later on in your timeline, you're an aging or aged narcissist. I think it's interesting. I think it's a possibility with all the pressure and dramatic life changes that are happening, especially to Donna right now. However, when I looked at her mugshot and when I saw her in court, they were on like a Zoom or something, she definitely still seems defiant. And kind of has that resistant energy. So I don't know if we're close to a narcissistic collapse there, but I thought that was an interesting concept. It's kind of like an exhale after all this scheming and lying and manipulating and that kind of thing, all the destructive tendencies. There's sort of like an exhale. Let's continue on because he's going to talk about lying more. And I think it's really interesting to hear what he says and think about all the Adelsons, really, Donna, Charlie, and Wendy as well.
All their lies, all their schemes have failed, and there is no one left to exploit. And they may become more desperate. And it's when they become more desperate that they may become more open to being exploited and being abused by others. Now, to answer the last question about what happens to those around the narcissist as they grow older,
okay, so I'll stop there. I'm going to link the video in the description if you're interested in listening to that remaining part. Might actually be good to listen to that and think about all the children involved. Maybe there are some insights there. But what I thought was interesting were the comments on lying and how when there's no one else to lie to and nothing else to gain from lying, it's kind of lost its utility in their life, and they may begin to become honest with themselves. Now, for me, if Donna was involved, Charlie was accused of it, and if Wendy was involved, and they have that moment of honesty where they have to reflect on what they've done, and it is an honest moment for them, it will be staggering, and it will be very powerful. And I don't know what will happen to them at that point, whether they share information or, something dangerous happens or they try to attempt something. I don't know what will happen, but I do hope they meet that moment. If they turn out to be narcissists and they turn out to be involved, I do hope they have to face that. So anyways, I thought this was a really interesting video. And how it paralleled with what we know so far from what's been shared in court through transcripts and recordings and testimony. I hope you found it interesting. Again, it's not a characterization of anybody. I'm not qualified to make a diagnosis. I just thought it was interesting and I saw some parallels. But this all has the disclaimer of, these are just interesting things to look at and talk about. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, go ahead and like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.